back. This is lecture 2 in the course on creation therapy. In this lecture, we're going to deal with two specific areas. First, we're going to introduce you to some of the history and scientific research that is behind temperament theory. And then secondly, we're going to introduce you to the three basic areas of temperament need that all people have. Modern temperament theory, as we know it today, has its roots with the man who's known pretty much as the father of modern medicine, and that's Hippocrates. Hippocrates believed that there were four basic humors or fluids in the human body, and that these fluids or humors caused our particular temperament needs and caused our particular behaviors depending on which fluid we had the most of. So he believed that people who had an excess of blood, for which the Greek word is sanguis, people who had an excess of sanguis, of blood, he called sanguine. Secondly, the second temperament type that he described was the choleric. Now, the word for bile in Greek is cholera. So a person who had an excess of bile then was a choleric. The third temperament type was that of the melancholy. Now, that's really made up of it's a compound word made up of two Greek words, melos, which means black, dark, evil, and chole, which means bile, as we talked about before, for the choleric. So while the choleric had an excess of bile, the melancholy has an excess of what Hippocrates called black bile. And then finally, the fourth temperament type that he identified was that of the phlegmatic. And we all know what that is. A slow-moving substance, that's what we'll say, okay, to keep things polite. And so he believed that people who had an excess of phlegm were phlegmatic, and that it was the excess of humors, the excess of fluids, that caused them to behave in particular ways, depending on what that fluid was that was excessive in their bodies. Now, that may sound a bit primitive to us, but he did do a good job of helping us identify temperament types. So let's talk about the five basic temperament types as we are going to understand them in creation therapy, as we're going to understand them in the National Christian Counseling Association, and as it relates to the use of the Arno profile system. Now, as you will see as you read your textbook, you'll see that there's a great deal of scientific and historic research and biblical basis for temperament theory. And I'm going to highlight a couple of important people who had an influence on temperament theory. There's a lot more material about this in your textbook, which of course we want you to read and to be familiar with. But I'm going to highlight what I believe are some of the 2 or 3 most important persons involved in that. Now, as we said a moment ago, temperament theory as we know it today has its foundations with Hippocrates. But during the modern era, there have been those who have helped us know, understand, and even expanded temperament understanding for us. One of those is the modern psychologist Alfred Adler. Adler's contribution to temperament theory was that he gave us what we might call functional definitions of temperaments. For example, Adler believed that the sanguine temperament of all the temperaments was the most healthy. Now, that's a value judgment, and I disagree with that. Let me explain that I don't believe that one temperament is better than the other, is healthier than the other, is different. They're all different from each other. But to say that one is better than the other is to make a value judgment. And if we believe that all temperament was created by God, if we believe that your temperament mix is exactly what God meant you to have, then they're all good. They can all be healthy. But let me also say, on the other hand, that I also believe that any temperament, without it being reborn by the Spirit of God, can become a very unhealthy and, in sometimes, evil temperament. Adler went on to say that he believed that the choleric temperament was aggressive. These were the people who were the go-get-em people. And to some degree, that is an accurate description of a choleric temperament. He believed that the melancholies were people who simply chose to be alone. They preferred privacy. They preferred aloneness. They preferred quiet. And then he said that the phlegmatic was not involved in life at all. So you can see Adler, while he had had very strong opinions, and while he tried to be scientific, ended up being fairly unscientific and prejudiced in some cases against some of the temperament. Hans J. Eysenck, as you might guess, a Dutch psychiatrist, believed that temperament was biologically based, that your temperament was the result of the electrochemical functioning of your body. So to some degree, he agreed with Hippocrates, who said it was the result of fluids in your body. But Eysenck was really kind of a modern day version of that. Eysenck was in many ways really a behaviorist, because he believed that man was made up of all of these electrochemical functions in his brain and in his heart, and if it was the electrochemical functioning that created our temperament behaviors. Then in the Christian world, more recently in our own era, you have Tim LaHaye. Tim LaHaye is a very well-known preacher, pastor, teacher, writer. And some years ago, LaHaye wrote a book called Transformed Temperaments, in which he talked about the 4 basic temperament types, and for himself described how the Spirit of God worked through those temperaments. I give you LaHaye's name simply because that confirms the fact that there are other Christian professionals besides the NCCA, besides the Arnos, besides Leroy Thompson, who use temperament and believe that understanding temperament is important. So that's sort of a brief, quick thumbnail sketch of some of the history of temperament. Please do read the textbook and pick up the details about the rest of the material there. So now let's shift gears and begin to talk about the different basic temperament types. I'm going to try to give you a thumbnail sketch of them. There's much more detail in the book. Please read that. But I want to highlight what I believe are some of the key features. To some degree, this is going to be a functional definition of temperament as opposed to an emotional or psychological one. We're going to talk about the behaviors that you see from the various temperaments. First is the choleric temperament. I describe the choleric as the strong, driven, natural leader. And the motto for a choleric person is, get her done. These are the people who want to get things done. They're strong leaders. You can always spot a choleric in a group. Let's say, for example, you had a task to do. You and some friends were appointed to work on a project together. If the cleric comes in the room and there's nothing happening, nothing going on, the cleric is the first guy who'll say, okay, let's get this job done. Let's get this show on the road. You do this, and you do this, and I'll do this, and let's go. Here we are, bye. The cleric is a get-it-done person. That's what makes them good leaders. They're very goal and task-oriented. Now, the problem with that, of course, can be that they put on blinders and all they see is their goal or task, and they don't see some of the other things that happen as a result of their behavior. Sometimes the choleric is so preoccupied with a goal that they don't always notice the effect that's having on other people. They're so driven and so determined to accomplish their goal, to accomplish their task, that they don't realize they may be hurting people's feelings. They may be making people angry. They may be upsetting people, maybe offending people. And to some degree, the choleric doesn't mean to do that. They are just very task-oriented and goal-oriented. So as a result of that, cholerics are also very organized and efficient. They're people who know how to make things happen, how to organize things, how to make them work. And God bless them, because if it weren't for the cholerics in the world, some things would never get done. If in some cases, somebody has to lead. And so cholerics are natural leaders. Cholerics use their friends, however. Without the Spirit of God to transform the choleric temperament, they will become users who will use friendships strictly for the purpose of accomplishing a goal. But that is the choleric temperament, the first of the 5 that we're going to talk about. On the opposite extreme, or kind of in the middle, if you will, is the melancholy. Now, I describe melancholies in my short description here as a creative loner. They are people who are very creative. These are the guys that'll paint a beautiful picture, that'll sculpt a statue. This is the guy who will write the next rock song that'll go to the top of the charts. These are people who write poetry, who do beautiful things. And their motto is, I live to create. They love to do those creative things. However, for the most part, melancholies have no real need for relationship. In fact, part of the way that they can be creative, of course, is to be alone. Generally, you can't be creative in a group. Also, in the area of control, melancholies desire no control over other people, nor will they tolerate anyone having control over them. And that's a key. If someone asks a melancholy for advice, well, they'll happily give it, but they don't really care whether that person follows the advice or not. On the other hand, they don't want anyone telling them what to do either. Melancholies are very perfectionistic. They've got to have everything just so. If you go into the home of a melancholy, you can spot it instantly. Everything will be in place. Nothing out of place. Everything will be perfectly organized. Melancholies are very detail-oriented, which makes them well suited for detailed kinds of work. They're also people who prefer to work alone. They get very uncomfortable, in fact, if they're surrounded by lots of other people. In fact, a melancholy, if they spend some time in a social situation, has to get alone by themselves, get away by themselves, to recharge their batteries, if you will, because they can only take so much contact with other people before their melancholic temperament gets out of balance. In terms of their temper, melancholies are the folks who, for a long time, do a slow burn. Their temper just sort of simmers and simmers, and you really don't know for the longest time that they're really upset. And then suddenly, boom, one day it just blows up, and you're thinking, where did that come from? Well, that came as a result of their melancholic temperament. The third temperament type that we're going to mention today is the supine. The supine temperament is what we refer to in temperament theory as a bowing temperament, a servant temperament. These are the people that are only happy if they have somebody else to take care of, if they have something that they can do for other people. Let me give you an illustration from my own life. My mother, God bless her, at the time of this recording is 97 years old, believe it or not. My mother is a very supine temperament. She's only happy if she has somebody to take care of. She and my father were married for 50 years. They gave birth to 5 children. Mom spent most of her life taking care of the 5 of us. When the 5 of us were gone, she focused her attention on taking care of Dad. Shortly after their 50th anniversary, my father passed away. And within a couple of years, my mother remarried. She took care of that man for a couple of years until he passed away. She was single again. She remarried again, and she's been married to that gentleman over 10 years now. And she's taking care of him. She is somebody who's only happy if she's got somebody to do something for. And so the motto of the supine temperament is, I live to serve. I want to help other people. Now in doing that, they appear to be very subservient and bowing. They appear to be people who are always bowing to other people's needs. Now, when they are given a task, when they're given a responsibility, they become very assertive. And at some times, a supine will look like a choleric, because if they're given an assignment, man, they'll go after that like they're going to kill it. The difference is, as soon as a supine is confronted about their temperament, is confronted about their actions, is confronted about their behavior, is confronted about what they've said, they immediately back off. A choleric will argue with you. A choleric will disagree with you. A choleric may want to fight with you. But a supine will say, I'm sorry, I'm wrong, I shouldn't have done that, you're right. And will immediately become very subservient. They're strong until they're confronted. A supine cannot say no. If they're given 10 tasks and somebody else gives them the 11th task, they wouldn't think of saying no. Now, the other aspect of the supine temperament is what we call very indirect behavior. A supine will never come to you and say, I need this. I'd like for you to do that. That's direct behavior. A supine will never behave in direct ways. They will always figure out indirect ways to convince the other person to do something, or to give them something, or to help them with something. A supine would probably never go to someone and say, I need your help with this. But they will just keep dropping little hints, keep making statements until the other person does something. The next temperament type is that of the phlegmatic. Phlegmatics are low energy people. Now, some people looking at a phlegmatic would say, well, that guy's just lazy. That's not the case at all. Phlegmatics are not lazy people. They are low energy people. And they are the people that drive the driven cholerics crazy because the choleric cannot understand them. And the motto in the life of a phlegmatic is Om, Om, because they just want peace and quiet above all else. Now, phlegmatics are low energy people, as I've said, but they are very natural diplomats. They want to maintain peace, and they are very good at making peace between people. Now, part of the reason they want to keep peace is because they don't have the energy to fight. Okay? And so peace is very important to them. They desire peace so much that others think they have no drive, no desire, no fire in their belly at all. That's not the case. A phlegmatic knows how much energy they have, and they know how much energy they can devote to something. And they'll have a checklist of 10 things to do, perhaps, but they know that with their energy level, they're only going to get 3 done today. And so that's all they're going to try to do. They're not going to stress themselves out to try to do more than their energy supply will allow. So they want to keep peace to protect their energy level. That's just how a phlegmatic lives. Next is the sanguine. If the melancholy is the person who prefers to be alone, the sanguine is the exact opposite. Sanguines are the fun-loving life of the party. Their motto in life is, all the world's a stage and the spotlight is on me. They love people. This is the guy that you always want to have at the party because he'll be the life of the party. This is the guy who, when you meet him, will always stick his hand out and shake it and say, hi, how you doing? Good to meet you. They always have a funny story to tell. This is the classic stereotypical cheerleader who's bouncy and lively and fun and full of energy. She is probably a sanguine temperament. Now, socially then, they like to be with people. But in the area of control, sanguines can be very difficult for other people to deal with. Let me explain. In the area of control, sanguines do what is called the sanguine swing, like the swinging of a pendulum, okay? And we're talking about control, so it's who's in charge of the relationship, right? Well, sanguines will swing from one extreme to the other like that. For example, 1 minute a sanguine may be very, very much in charge of the situation, and the next minute wants you to call all the shots. For example, 2 people get in the car. Husband and wife get in the car to go somewhere. And the husband said, listen, I don't want you to cook tonight. Let's go out. I don't want you to have to clean up a mess. I don't want you to have to go to that much work. I want to take care of you tonight, be good to you tonight. Let's go out for dinner. So the wife hurriedly gets herself organized and they go out for dinner. They get in the car And he says, okay, where do you want to go? And the wife says, oh, well, I thought you had an idea since it was your suggestion. And he says, nope, I have no idea where I want to go. You're in charge. You decide. That is a sanguine swing. And it drives other people nuts. I can speak about it because, as it turns out, I am sanguine in control. And I will do that swing very easily. And when you combine that with a supine temperament, which I also have, I guess I'm just crazy all over the place. Sanguines are also very, very sensitive to other people. They have a sense of how people are feeling, what they're thinking, and what they need, and will really do all they can to help other people. So in that respect, they kind of look like a supine because they'll be very helpful to other people. They're also basically motivated by relationships. While the choleric is motivated by getting something done, the sanguine is motivated by people. If there's something about it that's social, they want to be a part of it.
When the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the flood. I will be still